Hi guys, it's Yulia here and my new friend. And today I thought we could talk about your instructions, but not giving instructions, rather checking your instructions and seeing if they landed. So yeah, let's see. Okay, so ICQs, what are they about? So first of all, what are ICQs? Shocking. They are the questions that you ask your students to see if they understood your instruction. Now, what makes your ICQ a good one? So good ICQs are short and clear. You don't use complex grammar. You don't use difficult words. You need to establish very clearly whether they understand what you're trying to tell them. So yeah. They are open or choice-based. So avoid, we'll talk about this a bit later, but avoid yes-no questions because they might just guess the right answer, but you'll never know if they actually understand what you want them to do. So things like, do you A or B? Do you do this or do you do that? You can also give them examples, being like, can I do this? Yes, no, depending on the instruction. We'll look at an example and it'll hopefully make a bit more sense. Then your ICQs only test what you have said. So they only test the instructions that you've given them. Don't make them guess your instructions. So if you haven't said something, don't ICQ it, basically. And you only need to test what they're likely to get wrong, right? So if it's something that your students have done a million times before and they know the procedure and they know what to do, don't ICQ it. But if it's a freer practice or follow-up task, like a role play or something, like an activity with multiple sub-stages, and you need to make sure they know what to do, you will ICQ that, right? So just, common sense. Right? Now let's look at some ineffective ICQs, some that don't really test anything. So the first three, do you understand? Okay. And any questions? The danger with those is that first of all, they'll be like, yeah, we do understand. No questions. We know what to do, teacher. And then they start doing it and you're like, well. So the first thing, they think they understand, but they don't really. The second one is they don't understand, but they're too shy to ask. And that, again, depends on the culture, depends where that happens, depends on the students. But those are the two big dangers and two big risks you're running when you ask those ICQs. So essentially a waste of time. Because if you're lucky and they understand what to do, great, perfect. But then if you ask those, they don't understand, you see they don't understand, you'll have to interrupt the activity, you'll have to stop them halfway through, give the instructions again, ICQ again, hopefully with better ICQs. So it just ends up being a waste of time, really. So we don't ask those. Now, do you read or listen? I've heard this specific question being asked way more than I thought I ever would. It's when you first start asking ICQs, like if it's something new, if you've never done it before, questions like that one seem to be very safe because you know that they will give you the right answer. And you're like, yeah, I'll ask them this. They'll tell me, okay, it's a reading text. So yeah, they'll know we're reading. So yeah, great. My job is done. Well, no, if that's an ICQ you need to ask, just don't ask any. Just move on. So make sure there's a purpose to asking your ICQs. This one is just funny. I've made a post on Instagram recently on TTT, aka teacher talking time. And a question like that is just an example of excessive, not purposeful teacher talk. If that's an ICQ you're going to ask, just don't. Just don't do it. Now, this one, do you work alone? Essentially, it's kind of similar to this, do you read or listen? So, yeah, obviously, it's one of those simple instructions. They will get it right. You don't really need to ask that. But sometimes it might be good to ask this to reinforce the instruction. So you're not really checking the understanding. you're reminding them the instruction by using a question. I do this. I'm currently teaching an A2 class, and for some reason, they're just not used to working in pairs. Like, it's not, because with some classes, it's their first instinct. Like, they're doing something and like, oh, let me see, let's check together. Not the case with this class. So whenever the instruction is work with in pairs, talk to your partner, ask your partner, they're by default, they just start working individually. So I ask that, but I'm not really checking the instruction. I'm reinforcing it. I'm like, Mohammed, do you work individually? He's like, no. I'm like, and then he starts talking to his partner. So it's not, but I'm not asking this for the purpose of really ICQing the instruction. So yeah. And the next one is quite similar. When you first look at it, the question about time is just like that, do you read or listen? So it's an instruction that if they understand something, it's likely to be the time limit you give them, because it's very easy to kind of to grasp that instruction, right? Depending on the task type, you're not really checking if they understand it, but you're reinforcing the instruction. So if it's a reading for gist, for example, and you're like, right, you're going to have 3 minutes, and you have this text, and it's like a page long, for example, right? And they're like, yeah, 3 minutes of text. Yeah, great, teacher. But very often, especially if it's a reading for gist, they don't really understand how little time that is. So not to check if they understand the concept of 3 minutes, but to remind them. So be like, Emma, how much time do you have? And Emma's like, 3 minutes. You're like, right. So 3 minutes. Keep that in mind. Yeah, the last two are not great examples of ICQs, but sometimes if you're doing it for a reason and if you know why you're doing it, they could be good and useful. So yeah. Now, some things to remember when you are thinking about asking an ICQ. So first of all, you ask ICQs after giving instructions, not before. So again, don't make them guess. You don't want to make it difficult for them. Now, something that I see a lot of teachers do is answer their own ICQs. Don't. Sometimes they might need some extra time just to process the question. If you ask an ICQ and all you get back is just blank stares, don't answer the ICQ. You rephrase it. Sometimes you will need to do that a couple of times. And again, remember about grading your language. With a C1 class, obviously you don't really need to grade it that much. But with an A2 class, you might just use words instead of sentences. And that's fine. You wait until they give you the answer. You might steer them. So, for example, if they don't do really well, if you give them an open question, like how many, and like not much is coming back, you'll be like, right, do you write 5 or 10? So you give them 2 options and then you narrow it down basically, which is, which makes sense, just common sense, Don't ICQ obvious instructions. So that's do you read or listen? That's an obvious instruction. Do not ICQ it. Do not waste time. Another example of an obvious instruction would be something they've done before. So maybe if you are introducing a new type of task and it's the first time they're encountering it, yes, you do ICQ it. But once they've done it a couple of times, don't. They've done it before. You've seen them do it. Even if it was difficult for them 3 weeks ago, they've done it a couple of times by now. They know what to do. Just don't. If you're new to this, so if you're just starting to experiment with your ICQs, make sure you script them and make sure you script the questions along with the answers that you want to hear. It might sound silly, but it's not easy to come up with a good ICQ on the spot. Once it's a habit, it's much easier. But if you're just starting, I highly recommend scripting the ICQs. In your head, imagine it going wrong. Okay, I have this activity. What can go wrong with it? And just ICQ that. Another good way is just to take your instructions turn them into questions, and those are your ICQs. The more you do it, the more confident you'll be, and the more it'll make sense to you in a way. Right? And then a demo is sometimes even better than asking a million ICQs. So if it's a complex task with multiple substages and all that, do demonstrate, right? For them, and like for us humans in general, it's easier to see something being done once than being told how it's supposed to be done. Just to give you an example, something I did with my A2 class, the instruction was, you'll get 6 slips of paper. On each paper, write a word. You need to write 3 verbs and 3 nouns, right? So it was like a guessing game. Take a slip paper, see the word, explain it to their partners. The partners had to guess the word. Easy. Now, the ICQs I asked about this were, how many words in one paper? 1. Can you write beautiful? No. Why not? Because it's an adjective. Great, amazing. There you go, do the thing. So those are ICQs for you. Thank you for watching this video. If you scan the QR code here, it'll take you to my Instagram page where I also post a lot of stuff, a lot of teacher training stuff, just some general methodology stuff. And just my everyday teaching struggles. Thanks for sticking around, and the next video is coming soon, hopefully. Yeah. See ya. Bye.